Hello Internet, Mike Bertolini here, playing another episode of Cthulhu Chronicles. Now, I had a idea, I'm not implementing yet, but I kind of want your opinion on. In the comments, let me know if you want me to try to play through all of the scenarios with the same character to see how far they can survive. Let me know if you think that's a good idea. Otherwise, no, I'm just gonna keep chugging through each individual episode. Although it seems like this game is written to be one continuous story. Remember, like, subscribe, all of that jazz. Leave something in the comments, even if it's not your opinion on what I should do with the game. Alright, and here we go. Oh yes, and again, let me know if you prefer the narration versus the non-narration. I'm gonna probably narrate this episode, so just let me know how you feel about that. Who should I use? Oh, in the comments, let me know which character you think I should use if I'm playing through all of them with the same character. I haven't played her yet, I don't think. Leela Ann grew up in nowhere, New Hampshire, but is determined not to let it show. Drawn to bright lights and big cities from a young age, Leela Ann is moving to Arkham in what she hopes will be the first step in her journey to high society. She has little to rely on other than her wits and good looks, and sheer force of will. Luckily, it's usually enough. And she has a .32 Browning. The Owen Library is a quaint little one-story tucked between two much bigger office buildings in North Arkham. Its bricks are older than its neighbors, and the paint around the windows weathered and chipped. Stepping inside is like entering another world, one far from the hustle and bustle of the city. The world here is cozy and warm and quiet. The librarian smiles as she checks out books for eager patrons. Posters and flyers advertise upcoming events and club meetings. This is a place of peace and community, with a history as long as the Miskatonic. If any library is going to have the backlog of newspapers you need, it's the Orn. You've never been in a real library before. The closest thing your hometown had was a small shelf of books in the post office. You handle this new place the same way you handle all new situations, with your shoulders back and your chin held high. The librarian eyes you with an irritatingly amused smile. "What can I help you with?" he asks politely. The librarian doesn't so much blink at your request. "We keep the last 3 months of newspapers on a rack in that corner over there," she points. "The rest are downstairs in the archives. If you fill out a pull request, I can bring you up 5 of those at a time. Unfortunately, because newspapers are reference materials, you won't be able to check any of them out. You tell her the last 3 months' worth will be more than enough." "Thank you." Anything further back than that is likely to be a completely cold case by now anyway. This corner of the library is mostly vacant. Reference materials hold no interest for children, or most adults for that matter. You stand alone in front of the rack, which is almost like a trough. Such things were built to contain newspapers rather than animal feed. This will take a while to sort through. Well, start with the back and work to the beginning. There isn't much of interest within the last week and a half of the backlog, just the usual community news and mundane crime reports. Then your eye snags on a small article. No murder, just an old man who seemingly disappeared overnight. According to the article, Douglas Kimball vanished from his home in South Arkham. When he didn't show up for his scheduled lunch the next day, his nephew Thomas went to check on him. Kimball's house was reportedly all locked up, but there was no sign of a struggle inside. There was no sign of Douglas Kimball either. The part that really grabs your attention is Thomas's admission of his uncle's eccentric habits. Apparently, Douglas Kimball spent much of his spare time reading in the nearby cemetery. It's a promising start. The next paper to feature a murder case is from 2.5 weeks ago. The headline reads, "Butchered in the Bayou. Local eccentric found dead in New Orleans." You read the half of the article on the front page and flip through to the middle of the paper for the rest of it. Marion Allen, it claims, was recently found dead in New Orleans, brutally murdered and mutilated, post-mortem. You cringe at the evocative language in the article. Then you realize why the name sounds so familiar. Marion Allen was the friend that the late Mr. Merriweather mentioned. God, was that really only a few days ago? You take note of the Kimball's article's location within the backlog and continue your search. There's not too much else of interest for a few weeks worth of papers. Open and shut mob killings, small interest articles. And then a headline about an entire village burned alive. The photo is very vague, just the sketchy outlines of charred buildings. But you know it's Emberhead. There's no mistaking that. The article goes into more detail about Emberhead's current state. It's no more than a blackened circle of earth, decorated with the ruined skeletons of people and houses. Authorities are baffled by the perfect circular pattern of the burn, which miraculously did not spread to the surrounding forest. The damage, they say, was intense and concentrated, unnaturally so. You have to forcibly stop yourself from reading any further. You see, all this mention of Emberhead and Marion Allen makes me look at this as it's a continuing story and doesn't make much sense if different characters are always becoming involved. You quickly move on, eager to leave your first foray into the unnatural behind, only to run straight into the headline about Professor Lita's brutal murder. Thankfully, there's no gruesome photo splashed across the front page. You skim across the front page and flick briskly through the rest of its contents. Everything here you already know or don't care to learn. The bake sale benefiting the Children's Sports League, for example, is certainly none of your concern. Seems you're all done here. You take careful note of the names and places within the Kimball case and shuffle the newspapers back into place as best you can. Or you start to, only to be interrupted by the reference librarian. "Please let me handle that," she says. She's smiling, but it's strained. Behind her eyes, you imagine you can see the weariness of years spent correcting well-meaning patrons' attempts to reshelve their own materials. You put the newspapers down and leave her to her job. Douglas Kimball's house is a long way across town. You're not keen on shelling out for a cab, though, so you walk. By the time you get there, it's late afternoon. Douglas Kimball's old house is a Victorian, small for its type but still stately enough. It looks exactly like it did in the grainy newspaper photo. There's no telling who lives here now, but hopefully whoever they are, they'll talk to you. I'll knock. A young man opens the door a crack and peers out at you. Hello, you say in your most pleasant voice. I'm here to follow up on the case of Douglas Kimball's disappearance. Can I please come in? To your surprise, the man's suspicion's expression immediately clears away. Yes, of course, he says, swinging the door wide open. Please, come in. I honestly thought everyone had given up on him, a man says, closing the door behind you. His mannerisms are a bit manic for your comfort. He moves like a wind-up toy, wound too tight. Where are my manners? Thomas Kimball, at your service. My uncle was Douglas Kimball. I moved here after his disappearance, hoping to keep it in shape in case he came back. Thomas shakes your hand quickly, at the same anxious speed he does everything else. Come with me, he says, walking deeper into the house. We can talk in my uncle's study. It was his favorite place in the house. He leads you through a doorway into a wide, airy room. Tall windows line two of the room's walls, providing a lovely view of the slowly sinking sun. The other two walls are covered floor to ceiling in bookshelves. You settle into one of the room's two leather armchairs. Thomas takes the other, although his version of sitting is closer to the way a bird might perch on a branch. He looks ready to take off again at any second. What do you want to know? Thomas asks. Thomas frowns and gazes off into the middle distance for a while. Odd, he says. He was a bank clerk for work, but for all that he was good with numbers, he never cared much for them. He loved the written word and the unexplored avenues of our world in equal measure. Most of all, he loved them the two met. Thomas doesn't answer right away. His eyes flick up and down, taking your measure as he weighs his response. The supernatural, he says, finally. My uncle was interested in everything unusual and unnatural. He loved the idea that there might be ghouls and ghosts that could just out of sight. He was great fun at dinner parties. In the space of a breath, all levity leaves Thomas's face. He twitches nervously in his seat, scratching the arms of his chair. Actually, there was a break-in last night, he says. Oh, well, as much of a break-in as there can be without anyone actually being broken. Whoever it was, they got in without busting through any doors or windows. There was missing books all the sign that anyone was here at all. I don't know, Thomas says. Not conclusively, anyway. He could be an extremely opportunistic collector, or just an odd thief. But he frowns and looks away. I really do think it's whoever kidnapped my uncle. That's a look at you. And if they only stole just the books, that could mean they only just got the information out of him. He could still be alive. Thomas fidgets a little in his chair. My uncle spent most of his time at work or at home. You could start here and then investigate the bank. He smiles nervously. Thank you again for taking the case. I look forward to seeing what you come up with. Thomas makes a rather undignified noise and flings up his arm. Oh, yes, fine. My uncle spent some of his free time reading in the cemetery. Is that a crime? According to the article, he spent more than just some of his free time there, you say. It's not a crime, but it does mean the cemetery may have been the abduction site. Oh, good, Thomas says a second later. He seems to realize that he just said and starts tripping over himself to clarify the point. I mean, it's just good that you're taking this seriously. Everyone else thought it was just weird. I'll have a look, you say, and stand up. Thomas shoots to his feet, all ruffled feathers instantly forgotten. Yes, thank you, he says, reaching out to pump your hand. Thank you, I really do appreciate it. Thomas walks you to the front door, but hesitates to open it. He turns to you with wide eyes. Really, thank you. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't come. Even with the stolen bookstore report, I doubt the police would have given me the time of day. After all, the hankering I've been giving down at the station, they probably just have thought I'd made it all up to get them to reopen the case. He smiles wryly. I can't blame them. If I thought of it before, I might actually have done it. You leave with little fanfare, and outside you recount your options. Miss Cthulhu is much too far away to make it there before dark. You'll have to go there tomorrow. The bank, however, is nearby. The business day is nearly over, but if you hurry, you can make it in time. You pick up the pace, determined to make use of every drop of remaining sunlight. The bank looms over its surroundings, not due to its height but stature. It's a marble monstrosity, a monument to wealth and opulence. Taste has clearly taken a backseat to grandeur in its design. You enter briskly, conscious of how close you're cutting it. You have maybe 10 minutes before the bank closes. The clerk stares down the length of his nose, unimpressed. Do you have an account here? He asks. It's barely a question. He's already made his mind up about you. Oh, man. Yeah, I kind of knew I was going to fail that one. I'm afraid we're closing now, the man says, smoothly cutting you off. His little smile positively drips with condescension. That smile only widens as the clerk slowly and deliberately lowers the grate over his teller window. You stomp down the stairs of the bank. On the horizon, the sun is half buried and sinking lower with each minute. You set off towards the cemetery. You get there in what must be record time. Between your blistering pace and thunderous expression, people between you and your destination were all too happy to make way. Now the cemetery stretches up before you. 5-some acres of gray tombstones and gray mausoleums. The setting sun lends the macabre scene some much-needed color. It's still unsettling. You amble along the rows of weathered gray stone, eyeing the repetitive shapes in the hopes of finding something unusual. Some of the gravestones are more sculptural, elaborate crosses or angels that tower over their cookie-cutter neighbors. There are 6 mausoleums, staggered seemingly at random across the cemetery. They're nearly uniform in shape and fairly small as mausoleums go. Their marbled exteriors and false columns remind you of the bank. Only a few of them are padlocked, but the ones that aren't are all soundly shut anyway. None of them are particularly inviting, which makes sense given their purpose. Hey, I succeeded. The westernmost mausoleum is the oldest, and it shows. The facade is half crumbled away and lichen blooms across its pitted walls. As you draw closer, you notice that one of its doors is ever so slightly ajar. You settle up close to the doors, trying to sneak a peek at what lies beyond. It's too dark inside to see anything, though. It takes some effort to swing the heavy wood door open the rest of the way, but you manage. The payoff is a bit of a letdown. Just an empty small room lined with horizontal alcoves for interment. There must have been people in here at some point because the bones have been disturbed. Most of them remain in the alcoves, but some are scattered haphazardly across the floor. You withdraw from the mausoleum just in time to see the last shivers of sunlight fade. The shadows well up around you, fading into each other as darkness falls. You huff a sigh. Maybe one day you'll get to conduct an investigation in the daylight. The options, as you see them, are twofold. Either stay here and keep searching the cemetery for clues, or go back to the house and stake out the library in case it gets broken into again. The cemetery is already creepy, and you know it'll only get worse at night. But the house contains Thomas and all the nervous energy that comes with him. She's gonna stay in the cemetery. Sitting in the cemetery all night isn't a particularly appealing prospect, but you hope it'll bring some interesting revelations about Douglas Kimball. You settle onto the nearest bench and wait. And wait. The longer you wait, the deeper the evening chill sinks into your bones. A breeze kicks up and grows more intense by the moment. After an hour or so of nothing but silence and plummeting temperatures, you start to rethink your decision. You walk briskly back to the Kimball house, determined to head off any would-be robbers. The sidewalks are mostly empty and dimly illuminated by the street lamps and the glow from windows in the houses. There's one cluster of windows in the distance that looks particularly bright. As you get close, you realize it's the Kimball house. Compared to the other houses in the block, the Kimball's is a beacon. Light doesn't just trickle through its windows, it pours. Thomas must have every lamp in the house to achieve this level of illumination. You step up at the front door and raise your hand to knock. The door slams open before you can even make contact. A wide-eyed, red-faced Thomas stands in the open doorway. The fireplace poker in his hand swings towards your head. Yeah. You try to duck away, but you aren't quite fast enough. The poker makes contact with your head, and the sound it makes against your skull is almost as sickening as the pain that follows. Sorry, Thomas yelps, immediately dropping the poker. His hands flutter anxiously around your head. I'm so sorry. Are you alright? You consider your answer, but that brief moment of hesitation is all the prompting Thomas needs. He takes your arm and tugs you over the threshold. Please, come in. You follow Thomas inside the Kimball house for the second time that day. This time he leads you to the kitchen and busies himself settling the kettle to boil while you take a seat. Again, I really do apologize, he says. I wasn't expecting you back so soon. How is the investigation going? What brings you here? Thomas nods with a grave expression. Yes, very prudent of you, he says. No telling when those seas will be back. That's why I had the poker, you see. Again, very sorry about that. He sets a cup of tea down in front of you. Do you need help? I'd be happy to assist. I'm sure I won't be able to get any sleep anyway. Thomas smiles uneasily. I doubt I'll be able to sleep, he says, but I'll try. He shuffles towards the kitchen door, glancing back at you frequently, but he does leave eventually, with a quick "take care" cast over his shoulder. You make your way to the study and settle in for a night of constant vigilance. You drag the armchair into the corner so that its back is to two solid walls. From this vantage point, you can see all the windows in the door. You ready your gun, and wait. Hours pass without interruption. You find yourself relaxing against your will. lulled by the crickets outside, the dim light of the moon, and the soft ticking of the grandfather clock. And then a sharp gust of air wakes you up. There's a creature in the windows, frozen halfway through climbing into the room. His face, illuminated by moonlight, is a mix of human and dog-like features with luminous eyes and bulging white fangs. The juxtaposition between its twisted features and the very ordinary clothing it wears only makes it look more alien. "Well, hello," he says, eyeing your gun. Shoot it. It's nearly a point-blank shot. You don't miss. The creature stumbles back and falls out the window. You land in the grass with a loud thump, and then it's back at the window. Head and shoulders visible over the sill. "Rude," it huffs. There's a crashing sound from upstairs. The creature curls under its breath and scrambles quickly inside and towards the bookcase. You hurriedly reload your gun, take another shot, and... "Uncle?" A voice squeaks from the doorway. Thomas Kimball stares with wide eyes so wide that the whites of them glow in the moonlight. His monstrous uncle deflates. "Hello, Thomas," he says wearily. "I'd hoped you wouldn't see me like this." Thomas's mouth hangs open. His jaw works to form words, but none come out. "I would have come sooner, but, well..." Douglas Kimball gestures at himself. Thomas looks to you, frozen with panic. His eyes are halfway to falling out of his head. Douglas Kimball focuses on you. "I met a creature in the cemetery, unlike anything I'd ever seen. My curiosity got the best of me, and I followed it back to its home. In the process, I became this." He looks up. "Please, I just came to get my books. I won't be back again after tonight. You can forget you ever saw me." Thomas makes a wounded noise. "I just got you back and now you're leaving again?" Thomas says. Douglas Kimball shuffles awkwardly. "I wasn't going to come back at all, but something bad is coming. We can all feel it, even from the other place where we live. And I wasn't going to let whatever it is destroy my books." "But you'd like to try me?" Thomas yelled. His uncle winces. "We don't know exactly," Douglas says. He lands between you and Thomas. "We just feel the intent. It's hard to describe. We feel it as an imbalance in the order of things. The creatures I live with are small. Small parts of something bigger. One of those bigger parts is coming. It might not succeed, but we can't take that chance." And she's lost her sanity. Leela and Fairfax. The strain is too much. A fragile human part of your mind breaks and gives way to insanity. Well, that's Paper Chase. Surprised she lost her sanity so quickly. Alright, well, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments if you think I should do this as one continuous story, or just when I reach the end, just have it be the end. Alright, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, and have a great day.